Good morning. This is Tarrentino News, and this is a wonderful day. Presented to you by Unity the Movement, coming to you live from Universal Headquarters. This is Black History Month, and we're doubling down because we must become one with who we are. Because as they say, if you don't know what you come from, you won't know where you're going. And me having a good read on where I come from, I won't say that I'm all knowing, but having a good read on where I come from, it helped me establish why I wouldn't be in certain fields in my life. I'm a pretty big guy, and I was playing some sports, and I had a trajectory of being a professional athlete. But at one turn, I came into a little bit of opposition. And by no means am I blaming my opposition, because I could have made the adjustment, but I did not make the adjustment because when I entered the realm of intercollegiate athletics or just slightly higher in prep school and things of that nature, my coach was a great coach. He was a great coach. I really love my coach, and I still use things that he says or said in my day-to-day life. One thing that he would preach is ownership. My coach would always preach ownership. And how could you argue with that teaching point of ownership? However, when I entered this man's life as a member of his team at his institution, ownership had been taught to me my whole life. Whether I be CEO or owner or founder of a corporation or a small business or a shade tree, I was always under the impression that whatever I was doing needed to be mine. I've worked for 1099s before. I've been a contract laborer, but I still felt like who I was all up to me on when I come and when I go, no matter where I fell on the rung of what somebody else considered importance. So I may have been the ditch digger, but as a ditch digger, I was a contract laborer. I'll come and dig some ditches, but I'll be coming on my own time and I'll be doing the job my way. And if you don't want me digging ditches in the way that I dig ditches, then you're fine to hire your own ditch diggers and let them dig ditches the way you would like the ditches to be dug. Even into being creative and coming up with my own ideas. But the coach, he would preach ownership. He would preach ownership. He would preach ownership. And the way he preached it, it wasn't being properly received by my teammates. And I will say again, just like I'm not blaming the opposition, which in this tale is the coach, I'm also not blaming my teammates because I could have made the adjustment. But since the coach was preaching ownership, and this is ownership in terms of something that I already had a good knowledge of and had grand exposure to, because this is the way that I was trained about accepting and embracing ownership. And that's what the coach wanted to build the team on, was ownership, guys taking ownership of their actions. That's kind of how you would like to start. Let's take ownership of our actions. Let's take ownership of our actions. Now, who can argue with that? I remember asking my mother for my shoes when I was a little boy. Mama, have you seen my shoes? And I remember how she would reply. She said, whose shoes are you looking for? And I will reply, mine. And she says, well, you're the one that needs to know where they are. So taking ownership of my actions, taking ownership of my belongings, translating to taking ownership of my own thoughts, holding myself captive, mortifying my members, being stronger than the things that I was connected to, knowing the power that I have within myself to control a certain degree of the elements that surround me. Ownership. I was familiar with it. But I will say, like before, my teammates, they weren't very familiar with the term overall. So there was a lot of, as you would say, childish behavior on the team, which translated to a lot of punishment from the coach. So that's what I'm saying. I can't blame the coach. I chose to go to that school. And I can't blame the team because, you know, team mottos and mantras, one for all for one. We're not as strong as we're only as strong as our weakest link. So we have to bear the burdens. The strong bear the infirmities of the weak and things of that nature. So it's nobody's fault. It was just my choice. I didn't want to continue to go down that road learning a lesson that I'd already learned ever since I was knee-high to a tadpole. So with the coach enforcing ownership and understanding what it was all about, it wasn't a blossoming situation for me. It was me basically regressing, going backwards, learning the same lessons that I'd already been exposed to, and then the lessons being enforced in a way that I wasn't comfortable with enduring. So that kind of turned me off on the amateur athletics and even going through the process of being an amateur athlete until you become a professional, because that was something I was not willing to endure, not one more day. Once I realized after 1 year, you bring in more freshmen, so they have to learn the same lesson that the coach just tried to instill on last year's team, because they will tell you very quickly, last year's team was last year's team. This is a brand new team. So now we have to put the program back in the spin cycle so we can learn all the same lessons we just did. Now, if you can hold your breath and endure that for 3 to 5 years, then you'll, at the end, you know, if you're good enough, you'll get paid. But if you have a soul that's strong to where it doesn't want to endure one day of injustice, then you might not be able to make it through that process. Like old thing Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, something like that. But if you allow that to weigh on you, then your choices are going to be, I'll just find something else to do with my life. I can't disregard the practice of ownership so I can learn this lesson that this guy is trying to teach me so I can sort of pay off later down the road with actually somebody else owning me, but compensating me handsomely for my task. So I ended the realm of not going for that. And I have no regrets. And that's another reason, you know, I don't blame the coach because I don't have any regrets. I don't blame my teammates because I don't have any regrets. And I don't kick myself in the butt saying I wish I would have, could have, because I don't have any regrets. I don't choose to learn lessons in that fashion. If I've already gotten it down, you know, then that just might mean I'm not a team guy, which I am very happy to embrace, not being a team guy, because ownership was taught to me at a very early age. I love working with others, and I know that there's an importance to working with others. But I don't need to be trained in that fashion, especially in a life where if you're trained properly, you'll be pretty much grown at the age of 12. And if you can really look in the mirror and say, at 12, I need to take care of myself, then you actually can do it. But, you know, if you come from a situation where people won't let you be grown and you don't have the self-will to declare your independence, you still like mama's biscuits or whatever it is that keeps you subjugated, then, you know, don't try this at home. But if you're like the people that were born in the 20s, before, you know that you're grown the first day you wake up and you hear mama's voice or hear daddy's voice, and you say, I don't want to do what you say. Then you just grab your twig and your bandana and you just start walking. And they say, what are you doing? You say, oh, I became a man today. You know, and then you just be grown. So I got to give a big shout out because one of the men that raised me, he raised me to be an owner. He raised me to see it a certain way and to act accordingly. He raised me to embrace the power of self. And that's Rip Daniels. Rip Daniels, great guy, Black History Month, deserves a spotlight. Not only does he deserve a spotlight because he's a great guy, he needs a spotlight more than just for himself. He needs a spotlight for all people, more than just Black people, because he's still here. He is a resource that can still be utilized. He is not that library that has been burned. He's still on the coast. He's still doing shows daily, and he's still owning his practice. So big shout out to Rip Daniels, a father of mine and a father to us all if we were only to heed and comprehend his message and style. I will tell you one thing that Rip told me in 2020. He told me, get liquid. So if you haven't gotten liquid yet, I would advise you to get liquid. Get liquid. Liquidity. Be able to make moves. Don't get concrete. Don't box yourself into a corner to where you got to do this and you got to do that. Put yourself in a situation where you can do things in a moment. Because the way this market is flowing, the ebbs and flows of this current market, there are so many niches that present themselves, but if you can't move and capitalize on what's going to happen now and then what's going to happen today, and then things get just turned upside down. But if anybody can do this right now, you can profit. But if you put yourself in a box, then you won't be able to profit in this way this market is flowing right now. And you can't trust others to do things for you while you stay concrete. It's like if you were an investor. Just giving a quick example. If you were an investor and you're considered dumb money because you're a single, solitary individual investor, and you said, I'll just invest through Robinhood. You saw that Robinhood last week said, no, we're going to ensure that the smart money, that the big corporations, we're going to ensure that they stay paid, and we're not going to allow you to trade right now. Dumb money, little man. Why'd you trust us in the first place? So you can't rely on others to help build your wealth. Others will make sure you stay where you are or even take what you have. So we need to be a little bit smarter, and we need to become liquid. So today is all about Rip Daniels. And we need more Rips in this world. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send them to New York City. We have a few questions, comments, and concerns about King James, and we'll be touching on them very shortly. If you have, so send those questions, comments, and concerns to New York City. If you have any pictures, videos, or captions you'd like to share, send them to LA 213. And, you know, just giving that shout out to Rip Daniels on a day like today, full of hope, full of promise, reminds me of a song.
way I was living could stop. Serving rocks, knowing the cops is hot when I'm on the block. And I wish my brother would've made bail, so I won't have to travel 6 hours to see him in jail. And I wish that my grandmother wasn't sick, or that we would just come up on some stacks and hit a lick. And I wish my homies wouldn't have to suffer when the streets get the upper hand on us and we lose a brother. And I wish I could go deep in the zone and lift the spirits of the world with the words within the song. And I wish I could teach a soul to fly, take away the pain out your hands and help you hold them high. And I wish my homie Butch was still alive, and on the day of his death we had never took that ride. And I wish that God could protect us from the wrong, so that all the soldiers that were sent overseas come home. And we will never break, though they devastate. We shall motivate, and we gotta pray, all we gotta spay. Instead of thinking about who gon' die today, the Lord is gonna help you feel better, so you ain't gotta cry today. Sit at the light so long, and then we gotta move straight forward, cause we fight so strong. So when right go wrong, just say a little prayer, get your money, man, like go.